Welcome everyone to this episode of the Tiny Fit Diva podcast. I'm Kylene Terhune, your host, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and I help my clients uncover the hidden causes of chronic health conditions so that we can remove the stressors and heal your body. I'm really excited today to talk with Dr. Anna Cabeca, who I met several months ago. She is a triple board certified and fellow of gynecology and obstetrics, integrative medicine, and anti-aging and regenerative medicine. She has special certifications in functional medicine, sexual health, and bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. She's known for her work using natural alternatives and traditional healing modalities for managing menopause successfully. Dr. Cabeca has changed the lives of thousands of women across the globe, connecting to others through humor, honesty, and passion. Her book, The Hormone Fix, and other empowering transformation programs have helped women of all ages become their best selves again. Her successful line of all-natural products features the alkaline superfoods drink Mighty Maca Plus, which we'll definitely talk about in a minute, and the rejuvenating vulva cream Jelva. And she has an awesome book coming up as well. And it's called The Keto Green Way. Is that right?
The Hormone Fix, The Keto Green Way.
Yes. All right. So we will talk about that as well. So welcome, Anna. I'm so happy to have you.
I am happy to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So can you tell people a little bit about yourself? What's your journey? So how did you get into a little bit more the natural side to working with hormones? What's your philosophy? What did you have a personal experience with this? All the questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, it's been a journey. I've been an advocate for women's health. And one thing that I recognized very early on is that there was very little research in women. So we get the short end of the stick. We get generalized protocols that were mostly designed for men, handed over to us. And I recognized early on, I sneezed there, try to mute myself before I sneeze. And I recognized early on that we really needed to do a lot of work here. So I was involved with research from an early time, but I saw my mom suffer a lot. Kylene, this is something I see so many women, even now, with my mom's journey. She had hormonal issues after pregnancy. She had diabetes and heart disease. She had...
You gotta let it out.
She had diabetes and heart disease. And by my age now, she was 52 needing cardiac bypass surgery. The same age, I'm almost 53 with a 10-year-old. So I was diagnosed with menopause early on. I was diagnosed at age 38 with premature ovarian failure and early menopause. I had been tried on the highest doses of injectable medications without good results and without any results. And so that diagnosis, is so traumatic. If anyone listening has had to deal with infertility, I completely can relate to that. That in and of itself is traumatic. And so that led me on a healing journey, because here I was, an Emory University trained hormone expert, and I was completely hormonally in deficit. I was struggling. And so I took a year off of my medical practice, took my two children that were 7 and 9 around the world, essentially on a healing journey. Because one thing I learned after the fact is that everywhere you go, there you are. But for me, it was part of this journey, just trying to learn and find answers that weren't in my doctor's bag. And that led me to the holistic approach that I'm at now, with really empowering women to be the physicians, their healer of their body, to listen to the subtle, nuances, the subtle symptoms or cries for help that our body gives us, that we often suppress or power through, but those are calls to action. So I encourage and empower women to listen, to become their own detective, to solve the mystery of their body and heal, no matter what they've been through. I've worked with clients who've had diagnoses of cancer and diagnoses of Alzheimer's and diagnoses of infertility, and have helped them improve their health no matter what was their, what their diagnosis was.
First of all, that's amazing. Secondly, and you're amazing, in case anybody's wondering.
Kylene,
Secondly,
thank you.
I've had a lot of hormone struggles in the past as well. And it's always so mind blowing to me how quickly people want to put you on the pill or cover up a symptom as opposed to figuring out, especially when you're young. Like, you shouldn't be going through menopause at 38. And I shouldn't have, basically had very low everything at 24. And, why is that happening? And nobody asks those questions. And so more and more people are wondering now, and you're coming out as this beacon of light and saying it doesn't have to be this way. And I love that. And it's so exciting to me too, when you mentioned infertility, and it is very difficult. So more and more women are having issues like PCOS and things like this that make it very difficult for them to conceive. And I always just giggle a little bit when someone will go through my program or work with me for a few weeks and then they have to put it on pause because they accidentally got pregnant. And I'm just like, I was like, I'm going to have to say this is a side effect. Warn people, you might think you're okay, but if you're not actively trying to get pregnant, maybe you should be a little more careful, because this is powerful stuff. So
it is.
I would love to hear more about your journey. So when you traveled, what kind of places were you going to, and what kind of, quote unquote secrets were you discovering about the lifestyle part of it?
Yeah. So a big factor was that, I struggled with my health, but again, just powered through it like so many of us. I was a mom running 2 medical offices, working at the hospital, doing surgeries, all of that good stuff, and just really pedal to the metal type of existence, right? So there was that aspect. And so one of the things when I started traveling, I just went to serendipitously, nothing was very well pre-thought out here in my state at the time. But I met these amazing healers, from Native American shaman to Andean philosophers to some of the leading scientists in Brazil, Israel, France, Germany, and just and Australia and New Zealand. I mean, it was really phenomenal what I picked up, and I just felt like God's hand was in it and guided me along the way. And lo and behold, part of that journey, is that I came back pregnant with my miracle child, Ava Marie, who I conceived at age 41. And so I was able to conceive and then have healthy periods, reversed menopause for over a decade. And that was not something I really realized could actually happen to an individual, right? Often we give this diagnosis, and that's the diagnosis. So anyone listening who's had a diagnosis of infertility, premature ovarian failure, menopause, do not give up hope. To get to the underlying reason that's caused this imbalance, and let's fix it. And that's why I wrote my book, Kylene, because so many people are struggling at any age, in their 30s, in their 60s, 70s. I mean, at any age, there is something for everyone in this book to be empowered again in healing your body through natural ways. And I call it the Keto Green Way, because I recognized that, as I hit that second menopause, let's say in my late 40s, I had been able to maintain off nearly for a decade over 80 pounds, because I'd been way over 240 pounds, struggled as a fat child my whole life. So getting my body fit and healthy mentally and physically and spiritually and relationally was that whole decade journey. So then age 48 hit, and what I experienced was something so many patients would tell me. And I have to admit that I was like, sure, I don't believe you. And they'd say, Dr. Anna, I'm gaining 5, 10, 20 pounds and I'm not doing anything different. I'd be like, really? And then I hit 48 and I was gaining 5, 10, 20 pounds and I hadn't done anything differently. Really? So that was why I really dug back into the research, because at that point functional medicine. I'm double board certified, functionally medicine trained. I've looked all over the world for answers. I'm like, what's happening? So as our body shifts, as we continue in this perimenopause transition with dropping levels of progesterone, estrogen, actually going to give your audience a beautiful ebook, easy 8-page ebook that talks about what's happening to your hormones. Perfect. And a nice visual to really see, to help us understand, when our periods start, when our periods end, what are the hormones that really play with our body and our mind. So a little brief on that for your audience. So we'll give that link at the end. And so what I, had to identify at this time at 48, and then those pounds are just climbing up. And anyone who's lost a significant amount of weight or has been very overweight, when you see that scale starting to creep up again, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. And not only that, the scale was creeping up. I had tremendous amounts of hair loss. I just knew I couldn't live like that, right? And so I started exploring what beyond hormones. And that's why I tell women and men, it takes more than hormones to fix our hormones, right? Because if that wasn't the case, everyone on thyroid pills or supplements would be thin. But we know that's not the case. So it takes more than hormones to fix our hormones. And I needed to understand why. Why was this happening to my body? Why were my clients, experiencing these same issues? And what can I do to help? Because I didn't want to follow the same path my mom followed, which was multiple medications. By the time she died at age 67, after struggling for 15 years, she was on 11 medications, had undergone 2 heart surgeries. That was not a way, certainly I wanted to live. I didn't want my children to suffer through that with me. Yeah. And also, I think that, my mom was one of the most amazing people. Not only did she miss out on her grandkids, but they missed out on her. And we can't allow that. Too many good women just struggling, and that can't be allowed. So I put into place this keto green way, identifying, getting our body into ketosis, and having plenty of alkalinizing nutrients, low carbohydrate greens, that's where the greens comes from, and lifestyle factors that help with hormone balance, putting those two together to really create this hormone harmony, to be able to keep the weight off, but more importantly, to like who we are, to have peace and clarity and connections that are meaningful.
And energy, and be able to be present in life. And so let's talk about, you mentioned a few symptoms, but what are some common symptoms when your hormones are imbalanced? You mentioned, obviously, we talked about infertility, your hair was falling out, some weight issues. What are some other things that maybe signs that your hormones aren't really where they should be?
Yeah, definitely. The weight gain without doing anything different, or difficulty losing weight, weight gain around the waist, decreased energy, difficulty sleeping, not waking up rested, constipation, mood swings, irritability. Kylene, something I tell my clients is, if you only hate your husband 2 weeks out of the month, it's probably your hormones, not your husband, right? And that goes for our kids and everyone else too. So those are actually, physiology drives our behavior. So we have to look and see, well, what's going on with our hormones? We need to fix that. And something it's important to recognize, because again, our relationships are really critical. But when we're experiencing resentment, that is a red flag that we need to do more self-care. So resentment is lack of self-care. So we need to really incorporate that self-care into our lives so that we're getting good night's sleeps and nourishing our body in ways that just can magnetize healthy relationships.
So when you start experiencing those, what are some of the most common underlying causes that you've identified as being part of the issue that we need to focus on?
Yeah, so I think it's important to kind of know the transition. I talk a little bit about it in my ebook that I'm going to give you about how the hormones change as we age, or what's happening to my hormones. Is that, let me just give you a classical example of someone who's coming into my office, say in her mid-30s. So this is like a lifetime example. So she's coming in her early 30s. She's having PMS and mood swings, hating her husband 2 weeks out of the month, right? And so the standard of care would be, well, let me give you an antidepressant for that. Let me help with your moods, right? So here's an SSRI drug. Here's one. That doesn't work. Here's two. Here's, and the patient comes back in. I'm still having these issues. I don't like how the SSRI makes me feel. And my period periods are irregular. I'm having more cramps. So we're like, okay, well, let's help you with that. And we'll put you on the birth control pill. Let's just knock out your ovarian cycle completely, and we'll just suppress that for you. And so you'll feel better. Patient comes back in months or years later and says, I'm still having difficulty. I'm having cramping. I feel no desire for intercourse or sex. My relationship's struggling. My, heavier than usual bleeding, cramping. Well, as a gynecologist, my next step is let me go ahead and relieve you of those issues. We can take care of the heavy bleeding, cramping, and make this an easy transition for you by just taking out your uterus. And since you're over 40, I'll just take out your ovaries while you're there so you don't get that very rare chance of ovarian cancer. So and I'm tongue in cheek when I'm saying this, right? But the patient comes back in, and now still experiencing decrease in libido, decreased energy, also still experiencing maybe some relationship issues, not having as much pleasure when they have sex, or issues with dryness. The next thing you know, we're writing a referral to a divorce attorney and to a psychiatrist. So that's reality. What we can do differently is when that person starts coming in with these early symptoms is to clear up the roadblocks in their body. So energetic and physical for sure. And hormones are energy. Hormones are energetic molecules. We're only beginning to understand them, but I do give ways to test in my book, and I go through some key markers that everyone needs to know, as important as the number is on your scale. So when our hormones are starting to change, and as I started to learn this from the functional medicine perspective and bringing clients in for that initial visit, they fill out their symptom score, I take their blood work, and I have them do a 21-day detox. I support the liver because all our hormones are metabolized through our liver. I put them on a modified elimination diet, very similar to my keto green way that I give in my book. So that patient then comes back 6 weeks later for her lab results, and lo and behold, she's 90% better, 90% better. As I started really fine-tuning the art of medicine in this integrative approach, I went from doing 2 to 3 surgeries a week, minor or major, to 2 to 3 a year.
Wow.
That different. Wow. The power of the body to heal itself is phenomenal.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So detox nutrition, some herbal supplements like my Mighty Maca Plus that you mentioned, bioidentical progesterone cream, maybe not. We'd start with the adaptogens and adrenal support and just cleaning up the roadblocks, and then maybe add on additional nutrients. Certainly some of my favorites, omega-3s. But again, as much as we can get from our diet and lifestyle, the better.
Let's talk about Mighty Maca for a second. I'm not going to turn it into like a huge plug, but I got to show people it's sitting here right next to me. Yay. And I do have to talk about it because we were sitting together last, October, and you had little samples at the table, and you're just like, here, try this. And I'm thinking, okay, look, I've tried like every greens powder out there, not even kidding. They all taste like garbage. But you're sitting next to me. We've been talking all weekend. I'll try this. I'll try this. And then I remember saying to you, I was like, oh my gosh, how does this taste so good? And I think, what is there, like orange and peppermint or something in there? It's really fresh, actually. It's not like, a lot of greens are very like grassy. This doesn't taste like that at all.
Yeah, it's a really powerful combination. So blending my international journey with some good hard science, taste. Like maca was one of the superfoods, but I hated the taste. So I needed to make it better, right? Yeah. And so acerola, mangosteen, I mean, those are really powerful fruits. So adding those extracts in there, blueberry extract, the greens and fiber and enzymes. And then of course our known very powerful adaptogens, turmeric, quercetin, resveratrol. So combining that approached our inflammatory pathways from many different directions. So it really is a very centering, grounding supplement. And of course, I had my daughters taste test it until we got it really palatable.
Yeah, I love it. It's really, really good. And I think it's the best when you put it with really cold water and then it's fresh. So 1 or 2 scoops in really cold water. We'll put a link to that in the show notes so anybody that wants to try it can try it. But I would get yourself a what do you call it? A bin.
We have a free trial packet.
Yes.
So we'll give you four. It's four of our travel packs. So
Perfect.
the Mighty Maca travel packs, there's four of them, and we have a free trial link. So we'll give that to you for your show notes.
Awesome.
So you can
yeah,
you got to taste it and experience
you
it.
do, and it's really good. So I would highly recommend it. But the maca too, a lot of women, just that alone can help so much. So can you talk about how maca helps your hormones?
Yeah. And it was very interesting for me. But one thing that I just want to let everyone know before I forget, Kylene, is that you said it's really good in cold water. And that reminded me, we have a very famous sommelier taste test, Mighty Maca. And he did it in cold water, in room temperature water, in orange juice, and one other beverage. Maybe he squeezed lemon with it because it opened up different flavors when he put it in these different ways. So the fact that you said cold water, so you must have a really good palate for just opening that freshness, that taste. So I wonder, we'll have to do some wine taste testing at some point.
There you go. Dry farms only.
There we go. All right. So maca, when I was in Peru and was struggling with infertility, struggling with energy, and still being a mom and a wife and, running a business virtually, everyone would say, if you're tired, have maca. If you're feeling fatigued, if your baby's not thriving, have maca. If you're infertile, have maca. And then they would elbow my husband and say, it's the Peruvian Viagra. You got to have some maca.
Yeah.
And as a scientist, I'm like, yeah, right. This has all that whole age range. I mean, what's going on? And I looked into it. I looked in the research, and maca is this actual cruciferous. It's in the cruciferous family, like our breast protective broccoli right. sprouts, cauliflower, all of those. It's in the cruciferous family. It's an alkalinizing root. It only grows above 11,000. It grows in the mountains in the Andes of Peru, and that's where it's indigenous from. Other Chinese maca, anywhere else, not good. Ours are organic Peruvian maca. And it is composed of macaine, specific proteins not found in any other vegetable. Very cool. So they're called macaines. Not only that, it has a high concentration of arginine. Arginine is how increases nitric oxide, which helps with vasodilation and blood flow, which voila is how Viagra works.
Magic.
In food. Yes,
so cool.
Yes, natural. And so it does, it boosts the libido, boosts energy. It has it's also reported that the ancient Incan warriors would drink maca before they went out into battle to increase their stamina and performance.
Nice. So This is the perfect transition to talk a little bit about sexual health.
Sure.
Because a lot of women that maybe don't want to have children, or maybe don't want to have kids right now or get pregnant right now, think, oh, it's not super important that my cycles are regular, or that my hormones are balanced and things like that. But it's a lot more than wanting to get pregnant at this time. It's just important to be able to, your fertility ability is such an overall indicator of your health. So can you maybe talk about the importance of sexual health and how it's not just about sex and all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, sexual health is not just about sex, right? There's so much more to it. So as far as our intimacy, our connection, the hormone oxytocin that we get from intimacy is a powerful bonding hormone, an anti-aging hormone, a natural rejuvenating hormone. So that's a really key part. And because of early on in my medical practice, actually, I was a National Health Service Corps scholar. And so I came to this small town in Southeast Georgia. I had an office in a shrimping area called McIntosh right here on the coast. And one of my first clients to come in to present was a 63-year-old, 5'10", silver-haired president of a biotech firm. And so she had traveled to come see me in this little town, as I was the first female gynecologist. And she says to me, Dr. Anna, I'm 63 years old. I was diagnosed with ductal carcinoma in situ of the breast a few years ago. No one will give me estrogen. I'm having terrible vaginal dryness and issues, no libido. And seriously, I'm a woman of the 60s. I'd rather die than live this way. And her husband were struggling, and it was something that was really important to her. So I looked in my doctor's bag, and I looked and I looked and I looked and I didn't have anything for her. So as a researcher, I went into the research and I looked to see what I could do. And that's where I really found out about androgens and using androgens and to reverse the aging of our vaginal health, right? Our pelvic floor health, which is so important because while in the perimenopause transition, hot flashes eventually go away, vaginal changes continue, and that causes incontinence, prolapse, need for surgery, discomfort, loss of pleasure, difficulty with intercourse, and dryness, and discharge and odors as that whole milieu changes. But using natural ways that I discovered, we're able to really reverse age that too and improve the condition of our pelvic health, pelvic floor health, because it is something that tends to cause disconnect in a relationship. And so many women who are even on birth control pills or a hormonal IUD experience loss of orgasm and loss of pleasure. So we need to nip that in the butt sooner rather than later because it can have consequences.
So if you are experiencing low libido and it's, you can really at any age, if this happens, even mid, late 20s, that's not a good thing. You're supposed to have like this normal level to maintain health and everything. So what are some things that people can do if they're experiencing that? What are some things they can consider?
Definitely, and I lay it out in the book too, because I have a whole sexual health chapter and where I talk also about the effect of stress on our hormones. So we got to start by
right.
So key, because when we're stressed, we think our hormone cascade, and I talk about this in the ebook a little bit, but I go into detail in my book. When our hormonal cascade, we have our mother hormones up here, cortisol, our stress hormone, down here, and estrogen and testosterone further down here. So if we're pushing the cortisol pathway, we're not going to be in that reproductive mode. If we're stressed out, if we just watch, women are different than men. If we just watch, and we know that, right? We respond differently. We're not primary sexual responders. We're secondary. So we need the turn on. We need the intimacy. We need the foreplay. I always say foreplay starts with that nice hot cup of coffee in the morning that he brings to me, right?
That's right.
That's foreplay. The nice things we do throughout the day. That's important for women. And so that is, it's natural for women to have a secondary desire. So it's really important because clients would come to my office, Kylene, and they'd say, Dr. Anna, I have no desire for sex, but once we get started, I'm okay. I get there. Mm-hmm. And, so it was always that once we get started, then I'm into it. Right. And that was something very interesting because at that time, 20 years ago, we were looking at the Masters and Johnson's linear sexual response cycle, but that's not the case for women. We have secondary response. We need that turn on. We need that oxytocin release. We need to feel that intimacy and connection. Then we're responsive and receptive. So that's really important. So to recognize that, okay, well, it's natural not to feel turned on now, but once we get started, I'm going to be turned on because my hormones, my drive, my sexy hormones are going to be increasing. So oxytocin, testosterone, dopamine, those will increase.
Awesome. So let's talk about your book a little bit. How's it laid out? What can people expect and when does it release?
It releases February 26th. So It is on the shelves February 26th. It's already for pre-orders, #1 on Amazon for menopause. I'm really excited about that. And it really is for women, whether they're struggling with hormones or symptoms, PMS even in their 30s through well past menopause, because and the way I've laid it out is with a 10-day quick start diet plan. It's my keto green detox diet plan. So quick way to just start really focusing on the optimal way to nourish our body for optimal hormone control and optimal energy at our, in our lives. And so that's really important. But we know that 99% of diets fail no matter how good they are because The reason is, well, two reasons. One, it's a 4-letter word with the word die in it. We can't have that. Secondly, it's not about the food. It's not only about the food. 25% may be about the food. The rest is the lifestyle. How are we living? How much EMFs are we exposed to? Are we sleeping at night? Are we intermittent fasting? Are we becoming more insulin sensitive? And so all of those lifestyle factors are the other 75%. So I lay out that in the book, in the chapters of the book, and also give additional, because we like to have that nourishment dialed in. So have another 21 days of menus in there, but a whole chapter on vaginal health, on stress and the oxytocin cortisol connection disconnect, and other things that can disrupt our hormones. Really big aha moments that were even, looking at it deeper as I looked at more of the research for the book. It's just shocking. So for example, hormone disruptors in the food we eat, whether it's the GMOs or, actual fungi or mold that's in our grains.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that stuff, sometimes it can almost seem so overwhelming when you're thinking about, well, it's in my air and it's in my food and there's things in my water. And so it's nice to have a resource that kind of breaks it all down. And then people always love as well, I love that you have recipes in there, because even when you have the information, it can be so hard to then be like, well, what do I do? So you've packaged it all up, so you've made it as easy as possible, but then you have the education piece so that you actually know what is going on with your body and what you can do about it. So that's amazing. So where can people, you said it's on Amazon, and it's called The Hormone Fix, The Keto Green Way.
Yes. Yeah. And my website, dranna.com.
Okay.
So, and we have, anyone who buys it from wherever, go to your local bookstores, get it there if you can. And we have a book bonuses. So you can come back to our book page, and there's a whole list of, and we'll give you that link. So a whole list of book bonuses that you can get as well. Just enter in your receipt number, and there's over $300 in book bonuses, just extra support too for the book and for life in general, some goodies too.
That's awesome. We're going to have so many links and resources in the show notes, so make sure you go there. You can either, if you're on iTunes, you can scroll down to the show notes, or you can just go to the tinyfitdiva.com podcast, and you can see them there. So Anna, what is like an overall thought that you'd like to leave with women today?
I really want to leave with the thought that no matter what you're dealing with right now, no matter what you're faced with, what your environment is, what maybe diagnosis you've been labeled with, that there's hope. There's hope that each day we can have better health. I mean, we can have reverse the changes that are happening to our body, and we don't have to power through anything. It is time for self-care. It is time to be your physician, right? To be empowered over your body and start feeling energized, start feeling the quality of life, joy, and peace that you so deserve.
I love that, because it's totally possible. And we just need people like you telling the truth that this is how you do it.
And you
achieve it. Yeah. So thank you so much, Anna. This was just awesome, awesome information. I'm really excited for people to go buy your book and learn more.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.